Hello, hi, what's up? Welcome to the College Football Rundown for Week 7. I'm going to do a rundown of some of the key matchups in college football this week, and maybe some of the playoff outlooks for the best teams. First matchup, Ohio State, Penn State. This game was a big one. Going into this thing, a lot of people had Ohio State winning. Penn State didn't put much of a fight up. They didn't score a touchdown until the fourth quarter. And even then, it just felt like it was in Ohio State's control for most of the game, regardless of the score. Marvin Harrison lit up the field with half of total completions thrown by Kyle McCord. There's a reason this guy is a projected top 5 pick in the draft. He's unbelievable, and he might actually be better than his dad. He's one of the best players in the country, and he's definitely the best receiver in the country. And he's the reason Ohio State is perfect thus far. UCF and Oklahoma. I didn't think I'd be talking about this game because it seemed like Oklahoma should have easily won this game. This game was overlooked by a lot of people, but give credit to UCF because they gave Oklahoma all they could take. They were on upset alert for the duration of the game. Oklahoma was down going into the fourth, but had a late surge on offense to save the game and possibly the season. Losing wouldn't have disqualified them necessarily, but winning keeps their chances of making the playoffs a whole lot higher. UCF's first season in the Big 12, and they're holding their own so far against one of the top Big 12 teams, soon to be SEC team. Tennessee versus Alabama. Tennessee had a big lead, and they gave it up. Alabama scored 27 straight points. UT is not even close to the same team they were last year, and Bama is a completely different team than they were earlier in the season. And believe it or not, it's crazy to say this because it seems like Alabama is always a lock for the playoffs, but they are still fighting for a playoff spot. Regardless of their loss earlier, they still have a chance. If they can go on and win the SEC championship, Alabama can get back in the playoffs. Missed them last year, but they have a solid chance. They still have to play LSU. They still have to win against Georgia likely in the SEC championship. So it's going to be tough, but they still have a solid chance of making it to the playoffs. Houston versus Texas. Another Big 12 matchup between a new Big 12 team and an established Big 12 team, and it didn't disappoint. The new Big 12 members proved that they can hang with these two Big 12 teams that are soon to be SEC teams. Houston had Texas on the ropes, as a loss for Texas would have crushed their playoff hopes. Texas did have a 21-point lead, and so they were feeling pretty comfortable, but after Houston scored 14 straight in the last 6 minutes of the half, going into halftime, this game was a competitive game, unexpected by most. Ewers left the game in the fourth due to the shoulder injury, but Texas still ended up winning thanks to the help of this terrible spot and a not very well executed fourth down. And this is why I think that spotting is okay, but most of the time it's kind of inaccurate. Because if you watch this play live, I'll play it for you here. If you watch this play live, most people would agree that this was a first down. Here's the clip.
Snead off the left side. That surge looked to be enough. Either way, they got to go for it. Oh, wow.
After watching that, it's kind of hard to say that spotting is accurate because this really did determine the outcome of the game, I believe. Houston was probably going to score a touchdown, and that would have possibly knocked Texas out of playoff chances. But because of this call, there's been a lot of bad calls, not just in college football, but in the NFL. This weekend was pretty bad. So I don't know what's going on. It's worse than normal, but that's besides the point. Texas is still alive. Now all Texas has to do is make it out of the regular season with no more losses and win the Big 12 championship against a likely Oklahoma rematch. Duke versus Florida State. This game was one of the best games of the season up until the fourth quarter. It was a highly competitive ACC matchup, and you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at the final score. But Duke was actually winning this game going into halftime. The score was 20-17. And later in the game, Riley Leonard, even though he wasn't playing very well, tweaked his already sprained ankle. And despite practically begging his coach to go back in, Duke stuck with the freshman backup, Henry Balin. Florida State ended up scoring 21 straight in the fourth as Duke couldn't get their offense rolling. Florida State had all the momentum, and they put away Duke, and their resume for the playoffs is strong right now. I don't trust this team, but it's hard to deny that if it were to end today, they would definitely be a playoff team. USC and Utah. USC playing against Utah has always been a great matchup. As you could tell by Caleb Williams' fingernails, it's a pretty good rivalry. And this game came down to the wire. Caleb Williams didn't have his best game, but he scored late in the fourth to what they hoped would win them the game. Unfortunately for them, though, with a minute left, Utah drove down the field, and they ended up kicking a game-winning field goal that put any last playoff hopes for USC to bed. USC had a chance last year to make it, but they're out early this year as opposed to last year. And finally, the upset of the week. The only real upset this week was North Carolina losing to a 1-5 Virginia team and wrecking any chance they had to make the playoffs. North Carolina obviously would have had to finish completely undefeated to make the playoffs, and this just destroys it. Unpredicted competitive battle between these teams that ended in North Carolina being Virginia's second straight win right after beating William and Mary. So yes, William and Mary and North Carolina are considered equal teams. That is the take. Because Virginia beat both of them, that means that North Carolina and William and Mary are the exact same level of skill. No question about it. That is undebatable. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. That is the college football rundown for Week 7. I will see you next week.